Welcome back, and today on Homes Explained we are exploring the Queen Anne, which is the most whimsical and romantic home in all of American architecture. With their turrets, wraparound porches and colourful exteriors, the Queen Anne captures a certain fairy tale quality, but their story is in fact deeply rooted in a fascinating blend of industrial innovation, British influence and American creativity. In this episode, we're going to be exploring how the Queen Anne came to be, their key defining exterior and interior features, as well as the legacy of Queen Anne in neighbourhoods all across America. Despite the name, Queen Anne homes had little to do with Queen Anne herself, who ruled England from the early 1700s. The style actually emerged more than 150 years later, towards the end of Queen Victoria's reign, and became especially popular in America from around 1880 to 1910. The name Queen Anne was coined by British architects in the 19th century, who loosely revived a blend of earlier English styles, drawing from the Tudor, Elizabethan and even Dutch influences. But when the style made its way to America, it evolved into something far more elaborate, eclectic and ornamental than you'd have ever seen during Queen Anne's reign more than 150 years earlier. In the United States, the Queen Anne took on a highly decorative identity fueled by the Industrial Revolution, because with the rise of mass-produced machine-cut woodwork and an expanding rail network, suddenly intricate architectural elements became both accessible and affordable. So features such as porch columns, patterned shingles and ornamental brackets were no longer reserved for elite mansions, but started appearing on middle-class homes all across the country. This, however, triggered some discomfort, because traditionally homes had always followed a traditional hierarchy where the grand country estates were grand and ornate, while the workers' cottages were basic and simple. Now the Queen Anne blurred those lines, because even the most modest homes could have turrets and stained glass and gingerbread ornamentation. So to some critics, this seemed misleading and even deceitful, that you could take a kind of workers' cottage and add country style embellishment to it, and it was blurring the kind of social boundaries of the different classes. Others saw this as a welcome shift, where decorative architecture was no longer reserved for the elite. With Queen Anne homes, even modest homeowners could express creativity, pride, and a sense of upward momentum. It was architecture that celebrated personal taste and possibility, an optimistic vision of what could be in people's lives. If you've seen any of my other videos on the Federal Colonial or the Georgian or even the Italianate, the Queen Anne will come as a drastic departure, because those styles emphasised balance, formality and classical roots, whereas the Queen Anne is all about variety, whimsy and visual surprise. In fact, it was the first truly mass-market architectural style in America to fully embrace asymmetry and complexity. So let's take a look at the exterior features which truly define the Queen Anne. The first exterior feature of the Queen Anne is the deliberate asymmetry. So unlike earlier styles, which had a central entry and then a mirror image fenestration, so you could almost draw a line down the middle and flip them, they were that symmetrical, Queen Anne homes are deliberately irregular. The roof lines shift, the façades project and then recede, and the entry can be tucked away in one side or in one corner. And this gave each house a one-of-a-kind feel and set the tone for a really playful architectural language. Feature number 2 were the towers and turrets. These vertical elements were positioned at corners and could be round or square. And while Second Empire homes had the mansard towers as the vertical focal point, Queen Anne turrets were less formal and more decorative, more about adding drama and fantasy to a regular residential home. Next up are the wraparound porches, another signature feature of the Queen Anne. These expansive porches often featured turnposts, decorative brackets and spindled balustrades, details made possible by industrial mass production. And unlike the restrained porches of the Greek revivals or the small stoops of the Federal Colonial, the Queen Anne porches invited leisure and were designed for outdoor socialising and visiting with the neighbours. Exterior feature number 4 is one I'm very excited about because it hasn't come up on any of the previous architectural styles, and that is patterned shingles. And I just think they're fabulous because they come in all these different shapes and have fantastic names like fish scale, beaver tail, dragon scale, and who wouldn't want dragon scale on their roof on their home? But coming back to the Queen Anne, the most popular pattern shingles were diamond, scalloped and fish scale. And these were used to add texture to the upper gables and dormers. So replacing the more classical cornices, which you'd see in previous architectural styles. And these pattern shingles also gave a sense of visual layering, making even the most modest home feel rich with detail. Feature number 5 was the bold contrasting paint colours. So with the rise of synthetic paints in the late 1800s, homeowners were no longer limited to whitewash or muted earth tones. And many Queen Anne homeowners really celebrated this fact and picked up to kind of 3 or 5 distinct paint colours to highlight and showcase exterior architectural features. And this was in stark contrast to the uniform brickwork which we'd seen with the kind of federal or Georgian colonial or the muted stucco earth tone colours of the Mediterranean inspired styles. And finally, gingerbread trim and spindle work adorned everything from gables and porches to eaves and dormers. This elaborate woodwork, which was cut by machine and shipped by rail, became a visual shorthand for the Queen Anne aesthetic. It also marked an architectural turning point where decoration was no longer the exclusive domain of the wealthy. Even modest homes could now be lavishly adorned. Step inside a Queen Anne and the same sense of variety and ornamentation exists. These interiors rejected symmetry and simplicity in favour of texture, craftsmanship, and an intentional sense of coziness and enclosure. So let's step inside and see exactly what the key defining interior features are. The first interior feature was the floor plan itself, which was completely maze-like, full of small rooms, narrow staircases, bay windows, understair storage, and unexpected nooks. And this reflected the Victorian value of defined purpose-specific spaces rather than open concept living. So every room had a specific role, whether that was a formal parlour, a gentleman's office, or even a sitting room designed purely for receiving guests and visitors. The second interior feature is another one which we haven't covered in any of the previous architectural styles, and that is the pressed tin ceiling, which was introduced in the late 1800s, and it was both decorative as well as practical. They were designed to mimic the intricate European plasterwork at a fraction of the cost, but they were also fire resistant and they could be painted a metallic colour to catch the light and create a beautiful reflection. The pressed tin ceilings came in a variety of different designs. They could be florals, geometrics, or kind of a classical print, and it brought an unexpected texture and reflection overhead. So in an era that was obsessed with visual richness, even the ceiling was an opportunity for ornamentation. Feature number 3 were the stained glass windows, which were installed in stairwells or as transom windows above the doors. Unlike the symmetrical sash windows of previous architectural styles, these stained glass windows added an almost celestial quality, turning even daylight into decoration. Interior feature number 4 were the pocket doors, which allowed for flexible privacy between all those small rooms. They could be opened for entertaining or closed off to create cosy, purpose-driven spaces, ideal for reading, writing, or afternoon tea. These pocket doors were usually paired with deep wood wainscoting and elaborate casings, showcasing the era's obsession with craft and finish. And finally were the multiple fireplaces which anchored the main rooms. But these weren't just cookie cutter features. Each fireplace had its own unique mantel, tile surround and carved wood detail, serving as a focal point and a sense of warmth, both literal as well as visual. Fireplaces in parlours, bedrooms and even the dining room made each space feel self-contained and luxurious. Queen Anne homes represented the height of Victorian exuberance, and they were a celebration of new technology, personal expression and ornamental design. They also helped usher in an era where beauty and individuality in housing was accessible to more than just the wealthy few. But the style wasn't without controversy, particularly after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. And by the way, if you ever visit Chicago and do a tour and they say, why is Chicago sometimes called the second city? It's got nothing to do with population. It's because of that fire in 1871, which was so prolific, it burnt down most of what was already there. And so second city refers to the rebuilding of Chicago thereafter. But anyway, back to Queen Anne's, many people were critical of the widespread use of the wood frame construction and all the mass-produced wooden embellishments that went into the decoration of these very popular homes. So although the kind of wooden embellishments weren't directly blamed, it was part of a broader concern about how quickly the fire spread and the use of flammable architecture in very dense, fastly building cities. As a result, Chicago and other cities adopted stricter building codes, and later Queen Anne homes in urban areas transitioned to more brick and stone constructions with ornamental woodwork being used a little bit more sparingly. Nonetheless, in smaller towns and suburbs across America, the wooden original Queen Anne's remain beloved. By the early 1900s, tastes, as they always do, started to shift, and people began favouring the more streamlined and functional designs, such as the Craftsman and the Colonial Revival. However, the Queen Anne has remained iconic, not only for its turrets and porches, but for what it represented, which was a bold, optimistic era where architectural creativity became a national pastime. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the Queen Anne as much as I have. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out some of my other videos on the other architectural styles, and I'll see you next time.